I would like to ask you a favor as I bring it home today, and I'm wondering if you could help me by using your imaginations. And I'm going to give you some details to set the scene of a story that I'll tell to begin my talk. So imagine that there is a sixth grade boy who's walking to school by himself down a tree-lined street in Linwood, California, and it's 1974. You with me? He's wearing light blue corduroy bell-bottom pants. He's wearing a brown leather belt. He's wearing a hang ten t-shirt that's got thin brown and yellow horizontal stripes. With me on that one? Okay. He hasn't quite outgrown his preteen pudgy phase. He has long hair, long brown hair, and it was long like so many things in the 1970s were long, like car hoods and shag carpeting and doorway beads and sideburns. And his hair kind of sits on his head like a helmet, and it swoops down across his forehead like a bird's wing, like a partridge wing. Some of you will be with me on that one. Especially those of you that still have the David Cassidy and Bobby Sherman posters in your bedroom. He's carrying a notebook in one hand and a lunch sack in the other. And inside the brown bag is the lunch his mom made him, which consists of a tuna sandwich, some carrot sticks, some baby dill pickles, and a red, delicious apple that he hopes is not mushy inside and that he knows is going to be pushing a dent into the side of the sandwich. You might be guessing that that sixth grade boy walking to school was me. And that's what I was doing on a particular fall day, walking to Washington Elementary School. And as I was walking to school, on that day in 1974, a black boy about my age was riding his bike toward me, and he stopped in the street on Platt Avenue near where I was walking. And I realized at that moment that I must have been staring at him in a way that presented a challenge. Maybe it was hatred. I'm not sure what he saw, but I'm pretty sure my expression wasn't friendly. Linwood and Compton in the early 1970s were cities in transition. The owners of stucco homes in tidy neighborhoods vacated as black and brown people bought them one by one. Sadly, white flight was the answer for some Caucasian homeowners who felt uncomfortable with new neighbors who were different from them. Some of them were poorer, less educated. Some of them had broken families. Some of them neglected their properties. Some of their youth could be more troublesome, more violent. That boy and I, standing there on Platt Avenue, were just toddlers when the nearby Watts riots erupted and tore through Los Angeles and shook the nation. And in the decade that followed, there was a lingering sense of anger and ugliness and fear that had settled over the region. And that boy and I were growing up under it. Now, at Washington Elementary School, I had friends of all colors. Whoops, gotta go this way. And we reflected the neighborhood around us. And so my buddies were Tony and Paul and Daryl and Adolfo and Efforts and Marvell. And we would haul out to the grass fields at lunch and recess at school, and we'd play sports or just mess around. And we heard about the gang activity in the area, and the particular gangs that were in our area were gangs called the Crips and the Piru. And the Pirus were later to be known as the Bloods. And then there was the CV3, which stands for Compton Barrio Tres. We heard about these gangs. We heard about their gang fights. We saw their graffiti on our walls in our neighborhood. We heard about it from older brothers when these gangs would walk through the Linwood High School campus during lunch in a show of force. Now, I was pretty well colorblind with my friends, but after getting into a few scrapes, I learned to be on guard with strangers of a different race. So there I was, evidently giving stink eye to the black kid on the bike as I'm walking to school with my notebook and my lunch sack. And he's standing there straddling his bike, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and I don't know what was going through my mind exactly. I mean, did I value my tuna sandwich that much that I was willing to defend it? I really don't know what I had in mind, but I was looking tough, and I was just gonna be tough, and I had peach fuzz on my face, and I'm a sixth grader, and I don't know what's going on, and he's standing there over his bike, and he's looking tough at me, and I thought we were gonna fight. We didn't fight. Instead, he spoke to me. And I don't remember all the things he said, but I remember a question, and I remember a statement. They've stayed with me. And he said, "Man, what you looking at?" And then he said these exact words: "I got a dick and you got a dick." Let me tell you, he's the only person who's ever said that to me. There really wasn't more than that to our exchange. And as he rode his bike away, I remember being relieved because I didn't have to fight that day. But then in the time that followed, I began to be troubled by the words he said. And not just because he gave me a rebuke, but because I started to look inside myself and to wonder who I was, who I might become. I wondered to myself, how should I relate, my friends aside, how should I relate to a person of a different race? How would I relate to a person of a different race? What would happen the next time? Would I regard the next guy as my enemy because that's what kids in Linwood do? I never saw that boy again, never knew his name, but I regard him as my friend because friends do things to help each other without expecting anything in return. And that friend I never knew took a risk, and he stepped into my life, if only for 30 seconds, and he challenged me to rise above that mess. And the lesson that I began to learn from the friend I never knew is that you will enrich the lives of others and your own when you engage for good with people who are different from you. And I'm grateful that in the years that followed, I've had a number of significant opportunities to do that. One of those came in the early 1990s, as I embraced the goal of racial reconciliation at stadium events with a Christian men's group called Promise Keepers. They were powerful events where tens of thousands of guys would gather and deliberately break down cultural barriers and establish common ground with each other. It's powerful stuff. And then another time occurred when my church in Paramount, which happens to be just to the east of Compton, acknowledged that the fact that we were living in a changing community, and we launched a multicultural, multi-ethnic worship service to reach people of all nations and all generations. It's a beautiful place. And then another opportunity came in 2005 when I joined several hundred people at the very first Compton Initiative work day. We came to that troubled city to paint walls and trim, to remove junk and debris, to trim overgrown trees and bushes. And we came as friends because friends do things to help each other without expecting anything in return. And we keep coming back because one home, one school building, one church at a time, we intend to restore and raise the city of Compton. That very first Compton workday, I was working on a residential street at a corner house, tree-lined street with an elementary school nearby. And I was standing on the sidewalk, and I was thinking about how, just how the neighborhood reminded me of Linwood and the place where I grew up. And as I was standing there, a black sheriff's deputy pulled up in a squad car. And my first thought was, oh man, I'm busted. You see a cop, you know, what did I do wrong? But actually that moment had such a familiarity to a similar scene on a street in Linwood about 30 years earlier. And did he know who we were in our yellow shirts? Did he know what we were doing, what we were about? I don't know what expression I had on my face that day, but he motioned me to come over to his car, and I looked in through the passenger window, and he said, "Is everything all right?" And I said, "Yeah," and I explained that we're volunteers, we're working in the city that day, and we're helping this family and painting their house, and he smiled and he said, "Praise God." And I thought, okay, I'm not going to be busted. And I thought, that is no ordinary sheriff's deputy. And it wasn't. His name is Rafer Owens, and he's a son of Compton. He grew up there. He became an LA County Sheriff's deputy. He got assigned to the Compton station, and he also happens to be a pastor in Compton at Faith Inspirational Missionary Baptist Church. And he's a particularly remarkable guy. And you'll get to hear him and see him in action in a couple minutes. And he did know what we were doing that day, and so kindly he was going around from site to site to check up on us and to see if everything was going okay. That's Rafer. And that was 2005. 10 years later, this is amazing, over 1,600 people show up on a typical Compton workday. And we come from every racial and social and economic background. And we come from churches, corporations, nonprofit organizations, universities, local public schools, and the city government. We work from 7 in the morning until noon, 4 Saturdays a year, at some 24 work sites throughout the city each time. So far, we have painted and restored 520 homes, 350 school buildings, 124 murals, 35 church buildings, 28 public spaces, and we've helped establish the Compton Community Garden. And it's typical at a Compton workday for 30 people to show up at a house, transform it in about 4 hours, fill a huge 40-yard trash bin full of junk and debris, and then at the end of it, wonder who feels better, the volunteers or the needy family who lives there. I thought you might like to see more about what that's like, so here's a video.
Ain't shady, baby, I'm hot, like the prodigal son. Big up Bartolini, meeny, money, mo, and flower, you're the chosen one. Well, your left hand's free, and your right's in grip, with another left hand, watches right and self, Schwartz is gone.
Power to be able to impact change, and as we clean up our schools and as we make them beautiful for our kids, that does something to their minds, it does something to their hearts. They know that somebody cares, and as they begin to continue to go on to their atmosphere and their days, this actually can change somebody's life.
The kids are growing by just actively participating in the community. The kids are excited to come and help paint the school and make things better.
Come right here and see all these beautiful people, girl, you just don't know. I am so overjoyed. I can kiss and hug each and every one of them. And I just love their sweet spirit. And you can tell they like what they do.
I want to say that I'm looking at a bunch of radical people right now. I'm looking at a bunch of crazy people right now because here you are in the middle of the city of Compton or early on a Saturday morning because you want to make a difference, because you are hungry to see a change. And that's the way the world changes, is when we see hungry people that want to make a difference, when we have hungry people that want to see a change, when we have hungry people that says, I am going to be a part of something different.
Come out to support the Compton Initiative, to push the envelope for change and the revitalization and the vision and the rebirthing of the city.
It's great to be able to share a change with not just families and friends, but people we don't even know. You know, it's great to show them that this is real.
Isn't that beautiful? There is a wonderful spirit within the Compton Initiative. And it's something I appreciate. It's something that when so many people gather from the community, it's very obvious that many of us are very different from each other. But what I like is that we're together in purpose. And we're just human beings helping each other make our way through the world. I'm grateful to experience such unity in diversity after the friend I never knew planted that idea into my muddled head in 1974. And so many years after he challenged me with a question, there's another question to ask in the city of Compton. Instead of, what are you looking at? It's, what are you looking for? I have found something I was looking for, something that was missing in the place that I remember where I grew up and in the decades of blight that followed in those cities. It's something that we desperately need today in a world that's still fractured, where anger and ugliness and fear still erupt and catch the headlines. In Compton, there's hope. Thank you very much.